podcast with your host, Sana, where we talk about anything and everything around mindfulness. And we also explore the art of living fully, mindfully, and also authentically. Listeners, today's conversation is one I am absolutely excited about because we are diving into something I believe we all can benefit from: practical, hands on tips to elevate our mental health and well being. And joining us is the incredible Judith Belmont. She is a psychotherapist with over 40 years of experience, a workplace wellness trainer, and author of not one, not two, but 11 self help books and two therapeutic card decks. Her latest release, 110 CBT Tips and Tools, is packed with actionable, practical strategies drawn from CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, designed to help us manage stress, overcome anxiety, build resilience, and simply live better. So, if you think or if you feel like overwhelmed, caught or stuck in the cycles of negative thinking, judging yourself, or you're just wondering, how can I feel more grounded? How can I feel more myself? This episode is for you. So with that, Judith, welcome to the show. And it is really an honor to have you with us.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. So Judith, yes, I mean, in the circles of mental health and psychotherapy, psychology, I have had several conversations around CBT and the tools and the channels. But for our listeners who might be completely new to CBT, could you explain in simple terms what exactly it is and why it is such a powerful approach for mental wellness?
Okay. CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
and that is the most widely adopted therapeutic orientation in the world because it offers very hands on strategies, activities, tips to be able to think more clearly, to feel better, so that you can actually have better behavioral choices too. So, for example, if someone walks down the street and that you know well and doesn't say hi and looks the other way, that would be an example of an event, which is an A for an act or an action or event. And the C is consequences, feelings, and your behavior. That person walking down the street, not saying anything, someone you know well, you might be upset and you might give that person the cold shoulder the next time. But that person ignoring you didn't make you act that way. It was your interpretation, which is, what a snob. He must be mad at me. He thinks he's too good for me. But if you think, oh, wow, that person must have been really lost in thought, you would have been more concerned and your behavior would have been different and your feelings would have been different. And if you felt like, oh, maybe that person doesn't like me anymore,
Mhm.
that thought might cause you to feel rejected. So it shows you how important it is. The quality of our thoughts determine the quality of our life. So if we think in certain ways, we can change the ways we think that are negative so that we can feel better, so we can behave better. So that little example that I gave you of the ABCs, A is the act or event, B is your belief or your perception, and C is the consequence. If you can just look at things, any situation, in terms of the ABC, you will be able to dissect a situation and change your thoughts to change the way you feel and to change the way you behave.
Wow, that's really a simple and I think very, very crystal clear explanation of CBT. Yeah, because before this, I used to think, okay, it's like this complicated, very, very scientific kind of therapy for mental wellness. But I think this definitely removes a lot of misconceptions surrounding CBT. Um,
Right. So
there,
it's really the quality of our thoughts
Mhm.
determine the quality of our life. It used to be thought that people feel good about themselves if they have, success or they're have a lot of abilities or they're above average
Right.
or they have a nice home or a good car, or whatever. But it's actually studies have shown that happiness happens more of what's between our ears. It's really an inside job of what makes us happy. And the more we can think clearly, the more we will be able to feel good and live our best life.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. That I think this is $1 million takeaway, that it's basically what's in between your ears. So I'll definitely take this away from this conversation first. That will be my first takeaway. And now let's move to uh, so you mentioned about the thoughts, the quality of thoughts, and then the consequences. So the thoughts are more of a projection of the subconscious mind, and then the subconscious mind is kind of molded probably in our childhood, or maybe the kind of experiences we have had. And then when those thoughts are created, the kind of consequences we have kind of creates that vicious loop, of judging ourselves. Why did that man look at me like that? Or why my manager didn't greet me in the morning when I greeted him or her, something like that. So is it just because of the subconscious mind, or is it something else involved here?
Well, there is something called automatic negative thoughts called ants. It's just like ants, are pesky and we want to get rid of the ants. We
Mhm.
want to get rid of our automatic negative thoughts. So, yeah, sometimes we have certain ways of looking at things from early on, from childhood. Maybe we were, bullied in school or told we weren't good enough or by people who took care of us and that set us for low self-esteem. But it really isn't a matter of blaming. It's more of a matter of insight into looking at what some of those messages were and being able to change them now. Because in my over 40 years as a therapist, I've never met anybody who meant to be unhealthy. I've never met anybody who meant to give anybody bad messages. I People do the best they can with their mental health at the time. People who don't act kind, people who don't act healthy are unhealthy themselves. It's not like they make a decision they want to be that way. They just might not have learned or might not have been able to overcome some of their obstacles in order to be healthier for others. So, yeah, some of it is rooted way, way back, but we have the ability now to change the narrative of our lives and realize that some of our automatic negative thoughts, such as we're unworthy, we're not good enough, we need to prove ourselves, we're not smart, we need to change that, and we're responsible now. And it's all about being a victor instead of a victim.
Mm. That is profound. That is profound. And Judith, you mentioned about change. That it can be changed. Uh, but our brains are wired in such a way that we fear change. So, many of the times we won't even realize for the fact that we are having automatic negative thoughts. We may feel that it's just the way I am wired, it's just the way I think. So, how exactly can, this fear of accepting that change be mm, molded into something which can motivate us to make that change for bettering ourselves? I,
Well, it is interesting that a lot of people say, I don't like change. But you know what? actually, it's just like people say, oh, stress is bad for you. But
Mhm.
actually, stress is the spice of life. Change
Yes.
is the spice of life. How about getting married? How about making a new friend? How about going on vacation? How about doing these podcasts and trying to do something meaningful with your life? Everything causes a little stress, but that's what makes us have meaning in our lives. And so people who don't think they like change, they have a very narrow mind of the
Mhm.
benefits of stress and the benefits of change. And that's where mindfulness comes in. When you're mindful, you are present now. You're not like just caught up in thinking about the past or worries about the future. You're immersed in the present. And that's the best way to deal with stress is to flow with it instead of resist it. It's less like being in a water with waves. If you try to resist the waves, you're not going to be able to flow with them. And a sailboat won't go very far if it's trying to go against the wind and the waves. So you adjust your sails and you flow with it. And mindfulness helps us do that by not having judgments about our path, but this is the path that we are immersing ourselves in because when you immerse yourself in a mindful life, you grow and you have what's called a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. You're allowing yourself to evolve.
Mm. More of an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset.
Right. A fixed mindset is all anchored on the past, what you've achieved, what you're accomplished, what you're good at. A growth mindset is exploring and not have self-limiting beliefs that, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to do it. You don't have to be good at something to enjoy it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Judith. Okay, let's talk about your latest book, which is 110 CBT Tips and Tools. So, Judith, is there a particular practice, or maybe more than one, or tip that you feel resonates universally, or something simple yet profound that people can start applying today?
Well, one of the cornerstones of CBT is identifying cognitive distortions. So if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling very sad, if you feel very anxious or depressed, write down your thoughts and then identify, is it fact or fiction? So, for instance, if you're saying to yourself, um, I'm not good at this, I'll never get better, what are the cognitive distortions? There's many types of ways that we think in distorted ways, such as fortune telling. I'll never be good at this. That's an irrational statement. So, what would a more rational statement be that you change? It's called reframing. And a rational statement would be, up until now, I've had trouble with this. So one is all or nothing and you'll never get better. And the other one is more temporary thinking that you have some control over it. That's an example. Another example is I can't stand it. That is overblown, over catastrophizing thinking. So instead of I can't stand it, which is actually very irrational and very untrue, it's not factual, you can replace it with I'm having a hard time with this and it's posing a lot of challenges for me. That's true. So when you identify what's fact and what's fiction, you can better take control of your thoughts to take control of your life. So that would be one example of how to use a CBT technique in order to think more clearly, to feel more clearly. Another thing is what I use, what I like, is a metaphorical toolkit. So, what that is you assemble different things that mean something to you in terms of managing your emotions and stress. So, for example, uh, uh, there's in America, there's a candy called a Hershey Kiss, and it reminds us about the importance of self-love. So that could be in your toolkit. Maybe you'll have a ball to represent that, like a little bouncy ball, that in order to be resilient, I need to bounce back and roll with the punches. So that's examples of what you could have as metaphors. Just even the mouse on my computer reminds me of the importance of having control over my thoughts and not use cognitive distortions. Just even something as simple as that is often a trigger. So those are a couple of examples, but there are many examples of what you can do. And it's all about positive reframing. Uh, so maybe something that you regret or feel bad about, such as, oh, I, you know, shouldn't have lost my temper.
Mhm.
The positive reframing is that I have learned from that and
Yeah.
I'll take better care in the future to not lose my temper. And so you can't change the past and what you did, but you learn lessons going forward. It's constantly learning lessons that help us move forward.
So I think that's where the catch is, because when all this motivational or positive, thoughts, we often see, online or people telling us to think positive, think positive. I think that definition kind of is, very much clouded, because it's not that, okay, if I lost my temper, I shouted on someone, it doesn't positive thinking doesn't mean that I did good. That's the way I am. Let's just not, have that kind of judgment on myself that I did wrong. I did okay. It's more about, okay, I lost my temper. I shouted on that person. I am really sorry. And I'm also sorry that I lost the temper. Let's learn from it and let's better myself. I
Right.
think that,
And you apologize. You take responsibility rather than you made me upset. You caused me to lose my temper. No, it doesn't work that way. Nobody makes anybody do that. So the more you take responsibility for doing that, the more you can take accountability. And that says something very positive about you. We're all works in progress. We all make mistakes. We all have emotions that sometimes go out of control. The most important thing is to make amends and move on wiser and try to be better.
mm, absolutely, absolutely. And when you mention about, forgiving, there's another component, another aspect that you emphasize is self-compassion. And I'm not sure about the count, how many times in how many conversations with so many incredible guests, I have learned that, self-compassion, although many of us struggle with that, but it is such an effective way of kind of getting out of that, uplifting ourselves, because many a times we keep on um, we get into that negative thought, or negative, that vicious rabbit hole, thinking about, I did that wrong, I took that decision, wrong decision many years back, and I am bad, I am not worthy enough to take that decision, and kind of we leave out on so many opportunities in there, for upliftment. So could you share any practical CBT tool for cultivating more self-compassion, Judith? Because especially on those tough days when we are our own harshest critics.
Well, you can symbolically visualize, and let's say you cup your hands and put all your mistakes and your failures and your regrets, and then release them in the water. And just use a visualization of realizing that you are no less worthy because of your mistakes, and actively try to visualize what life would be like if you gave them up, because holding them after you've already made amends, after you already took responsibility, is not going to change them. That's one thing for sure, is the past never changes. And forgive yourself for not having the foresight to know what you now know in hindsight. It's maybe very obvious looking back, but maybe you just weren't healthy enough then to act better. And now you can build on the lessons that you learned. So that's just a visualization. Another thing is to imagine that you're, let's say, at a movie theater, and all your regrets and the things that you keep on beating yourself up about are on the screen. And imagine looking at them instead of looking from them. And that's a example of cognitive diffusion. You diffuse your automatic thoughts and you become an observer of them. And that sometimes can help us not look from our mistakes, but look objectively at them and realize it's the price of being human. So that would be an example of a couple self-compassion exercises. Also, just to put your hand on your heart and massage it and say, I am worthy, I am special, and even with my flaws, I deserve a good life. Because sometimes I've seen clients that felt responsible for wrecking other people's lives, even though they were not responsible, they were not abusive or anything, but they just had the messages from other people that they drove them to drink. You made me depressed. And I'm thinking of one guy in particular, his wife would blame him for her alcoholism. And it's only when she died was he able to be free and realize he wasn't responsible for that. It was her choice to drink. But so often we get brainwashed and we have very self-limiting beliefs that really don't make any sense at all. Let yourself fail. Let yourself miss the mark, because that's all part of being human. And forgive yourself for it. And the best way of moving forward is building on your mistakes to be a kinder, more gentle, empathetic, deeper person.
That is beautifully reframed, Judith. And since I mean, you also have your experience as a workplace wellness trainer. Uh,
Yes.
what are some CBT inspired strategies that can help people effectively manage stress in professional settings? You know, especially when there is remote work and then constant connectivity. Then more, the world is like right now like becoming more and more competitive. You know, kind of glorifying competition.
Well, one thing to do is, again, being very in touch with your core beliefs. What are the beliefs that are limiting you from feeling comfortable in the workplace? Maybe you're feeling like you're not as good as your coworker, or maybe you don't feel as well liked, or maybe you're afraid of doing the wrong thing. Um, I think it's very important just to identify what some of those thoughts are and then look at it in a more realistic way, like I had mentioned before, and identify the distortions. If you say, it would be terrible if I sounded stupid at the meeting, then you write it down and then you say, actually, it would just be uh, unfortunate if I said something that I wish I didn't, but it was hardly the end of the world. Sometimes we have to talk ourselves down from being so extreme and dramatic, because a lot of times we feel like we need to be approved of by everyone so much that we don't actually approve of ourselves. So anything that we do personally to make ourselves better and empower ourselves, the best. I would say probably most of the people that I had worked with that had a lot of workplace stress, they felt like other people were stressing them out. They blamed their boss, they blamed their clients, they blamed their coworkers. And the more they took responsibility, the better, because they realized they weren't a victim of anybody except their own irrational negative thoughts.
Mm. People pleasing is really, it can get you to such a rabbit hole. I mean,
Yeah,
it can
exactly.
it can really be detrimental in terms of losing yourself or losing your identity. So,
Right. So, like, if you think, oh, my boss stressed me out, you're going to be very nervous or anxious. But if you say, no, that's actually irrational. She's not stressing me out. I am stressed when she reprimands me. I am stressed when she walks in the room. But what's the difference? It's not just semantics. One is that you are then able to change that rather than feel like a victim of her. So just a shift in the mindset, you can just, an example to be, it can be folding your arms. Like I'm folding my arms right now and my right arm is on top. In a live presentation, it's usually about 60-40, 50-50. A lot of people have their left arm on top. So let's try it the other way. Whatever arm you put on top, try it the other way. It feels awkward. It feels different. But for half the people in a room, it's very comfortable. So we all have our different comfort zones, and sometimes we have to shift our perspective just a little bit, even though it might seem foreign to us, so that we can see things differently and therefore empower ourselves.
mm, great. That was really, really, really helpful and really informative. So, um, Judith, if our listeners would like to connect with you, get a hold of your book, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can look on Amazon, and I have an author page, Judith Belmont. But you also can go on belmontwellness.com. It's spelled Belmont wellness, just a Belmont with one L. And I have a lot of free resources there. I have handouts, worksheets, um, to help people learn skills to think more clearly and behave more assertively, which is using, for example, I statements instead of you statements. So that all is spelled out in a lot of the handouts that I have on my website. And I also have a lot of my videos and interviews that people can see.
Lovely, lovely. I'll make sure to mention the links and the details. And Judith, thank you so much for this informative, rich, and practical conversation.
Thank you
And
very much for interviewing me. I appreciate it.
absolutely. And for our listeners, who want to explore more, just refer to the show notes. And I highly recommend checking out Judith's latest book, 110 CBT Tips and Tools. And also, thank you to everyone for tuning into the Mindful Living. Whether it's reframing a single thought or pausing to breathe, small steps add up, and you are doing the work. Until next time, stay mindful. Thank you.